Film fans YouTube, hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Josh, your movie apprentice, and I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Yep, it is that time of year where everyone gets out their best of the year list and their worst of the year list, and today I'm looking at my most disappointing movies. Now, I must say up front, this is categorically not, I repeat, not my worst of the year list. There are films that you go to watch that you expect to be bad, but you hope will be surprising to you, and they end up being bad anyway. And those are the ones that tend to make at the bottom of the year list. These are the movies that I went into wanting to love, wanting to enjoy, expecting big things from, and they all fall flat from the sigh-inducing to the outright frustrating disappointments. We are going to be going through 10 in no particular order, but assume the first ones I go through are kind of they were fine, I expected more, and as we get towards the end, imagine I get more frustrated. If you really want to know my bottom 10 of the year in terms of the movies I watched, here is the bottom 10 movies right here that I would say I watched this year. And yet a couple of them might be on the disappointments list, but without further ado, let's get into it. Coming up first, we have Kung Fu Panda 4, the follow-up to a trilogy that is well revered by many people. This is one of DreamWorks' master trilogies. It just felt very generic and very flat. You're without the Furious Five for most of the movie. Shifu is just stressed grandpa the entire time. And the story of Po choosing the follow-up Dragon Warrior to pass it on to is very underwhelming. I found the Apprentice to be, while they had good banter, I didn't feel they were fleshed out enough, and their inevitable betrayal before coming back to the good side by the end felt very rushed and forced, and the dialogue felt very heavy-handed. And the comedian is hands down the worst villain in the entire series, and that is a criminal waste of Viola Davis' talents. That was just one of those films that I thought it was fine, it was watchable, I didn't hate it, but it just could have been a lot more in my opinion. I can say a lot the same for Maxine. Now, Maxine is the follow-up to Ty West's X and Pearl, and whilst those two are incredible, this one felt like it felt short on a number of levels. It was great seeing Maxine evolve through Hollywood and become the screen queen, have a lot of themes about the fickle nature of Hollywood that unfortunately would be topped by the substance later on in the year. It just felt like a move that I wanted a little bit more from. The reveal of the villain at the end felt very ham-fisted. Giancarlo Esposito's wig was certainly a choice. Whilst there are enjoyable elements like Giancarlo Esposito's performance is really good, Kevin Bacon is brilliant as the antagonist, and Mia Goh is great as Maxine. I just feel like there was more that Maxine could have done, and compared to the previous two, doesn't hold a candle to him, so based on that metric, it was a disappointment. Lisa Frankenstein is another one of those that I had high hopes going into it. It was my kind of vibe. Dark humor, dark comedy, horror villains, just all the vibes, the goth vibe. It was just the vibes of this movie, the neon, vibrant edginess to it. And with it being a follow-up from the writer of Jennifer's Body, which has gone on to become an absolute cult classic, I was excited for this one, especially as directed by Zelda Williams, daughter of the late great Robin Williams. It was an annoying one, unfortunately. It just felt like the lead character was very hard to really like. I enjoyed the stepsister dynamics between the two. Whilst the comedy is there, it just felt very flat for me. There is a character that's killed off in it that feels like it's very mean-spirited, and it gets harder and harder to really like Lisa as a lead character towards the later half of the movie. And whilst Cole Sprouse does a great job as the titular Frankenstein's creature, their relationship was okay, but was anything amazing. And unfortunately, I do not see this getting the same cult following that Jennifer's Body did back in the day, which is rather unfortunate. That's another one that I thought it was fine. It's just not something I'm going to revisit. Now we get into the more irritating one. So first of all, we have The Seed of the Sacred Fig. I went into this one at a London Film Festival. I watched the trailer for it, and going into the festival, the premise alone was intriguing. There is a father, a patriarch of a family that has become the head judge in Iran, who's tasked with passing judgment. It can involve anything up to executions. Meanwhile, his two daughters, are going through an evolution in Iran where women are just basically want to express themselves more and have more freedom. It uses real footage from riots caused due to the death of a protester that was just basically in custody, if memory serves correctly. But they use some really graphic imagery in this that is very difficult to watch at times, and it's very engrossing. So for the first hour, this felt like it could have been one of my top movies of the year. So my disappointment really came when we got to the final half of the movie. There was a great mystery that's established in the second hour, but it kind of gets predictable who is the cause of this mystery. And by the end, it devolves into an outright Scooby Doo cartoon. This is a film that, if you look at the making of this movie and what the director had to go through just to get this film released, it's definitely worth a watch purely based on that. Like, you can make a whole study on how this film got made and released, and I hope it does very well in the award season. But it just feels like the second half of the movie does not hold a candle to the first half, which is why it lands on my disappointments list, because I was really expecting a potential best of the year candidate with this one. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is the sequel to the original Tim Burton movie, and whilst a lot of fans really like this one, this is a film that just reeked of an overcrowded nature. There was too much going on, from Winona Ryder's relationship with this sleazeball of a man, Jenna Ortega falling in love with a ghost boy. You have the grandmother of Jenna Ortega who's died as they move on. Beetlejuice is still all about Winona Ryder, and he now has an ex as well. That is the cause of his death in the original movie. And it just feels very overcrowded. Plot threads get tied up and chucked away at the drop of a hat. It just feels like Tim Burton should stop putting his misses in his movies, to be honest, because that character, aside from aesthetics, serves no great purpose in the story. And for me, it was just an absolute letdown overall. Gladiator II is next, and whilst, yes, the epic battle sequences are brilliant, unfortunately, when you compare it to the original one, it lacks the charisma. I'm a big Paul Mescal fan, and he is great in this, as much as he can be anyway. And Denzel Washington absolutely steals the show. But this also suffers from a sense of overcrowdedness. Pedro Pascal plays this great character that genuinely you could have focused the whole movie around him, and then might have been a bit more engaging. The idea that the lead character in this is the son of Maximus feels like it devalues the original one a little bit as well. And whilst it's hinted at in the original that he might be the son, it's never confirmed. I don't feel like him needing to be directly related to Maximus is needed. And the film is kind of ends as well. It's a great spectacle movie, for sure. The action set pieces are brilliant, and Denzel Washington is worth the price of admission alone. But compared to the original, this was a disappointing follow-up. And talking of disappointing follow-ups, we have Moana 2. This was supposed to be a series that got the movie treatment, and you can see it because there is a number of things in this that just feel very mediocre, bland, undercooked. There is so much going on here. There's a very cool villain aesthetic that is discarded as quickly as it comes. You have side characters that effectively you could sub in the trio from Lightyear with these characters, and it won't make much of a difference. There's a big separation between Moana and Maui for the majority of the film. Maui doesn't come in until about halfway through, or at least links up with Moana's crew until halfway through. So that in itself meant that the emotional beats in the final act between the two feel very undeserved. There's this whole struggle with Moana, with her little sister, and about leaving her for long periods of time. There's no sense of the amount of time this journey is taking. So as a result, it's just a very underwhelming sequel to what was one of the best Disney films in years. The original Moana, I had no expectations going into it. I came out thinking it was the best Disney film, or at least best Disney princess protagonist since Mulan. So this was just a massive downgrade on what had come before, and is easily one of the biggest disappointments of the year. And now we get into my three frustrating disappointments. We're going to start off with War of the Rohirrim. I'm a massive weeb. I love anime. So combining the epic scale of Lord of the Rings with anime should have been a match made in heaven. But instead, we got a generic story with some very irritating callbacks and fan service moments. Like they straight up rip the battle speech from King Theoden on Pelennor in the Fields, which is one of the best battle speeches of all time. There's a whole awkward Saruman introduction in the final bit. That is very irritating. And the animation, whilst I would not pretend that anime has to be perfect all the time. Some of the best animes ever had these very janky animations. This one felt like the way it was animated felt very over the top. And there were several times where the lips are never matching up with what is being said on screen. There are characters that seem to be animated for animation's sake. Also, the pure failure to really establish a sense of geography and scale in the battle sequences. Like, there is genuine deaths in this where it turns out the people that are close to him happen to be right there next to him, and you don't see that until after they're dead. There's no sense of geography and location. There's just some very poorly executed battle sequences that really let down what, on an art style perspective, looks gorgeous, but the way the art is animated is very irritating. And there's some story beats that just feel very idiotic. I know it's anime based and anime can be idiotic at times, but there's a character death in this and they didn't need to die. They could have literally got out of that situation so easily. And whilst it was a badass moment, it didn't feel earned overall. So for me, Water Harem is just a frustrating mess, and I really wanted it to be one of my favorites, a potential best animated feature winner. But unfortunately, it's not going to get there because it feels rushed, and Warner Bros. Admitted that they did rush this one out. Then we have Joker Folly Ado. Joker 1 was a fantastic surprise. It was incredible, and this one is anything but. This is how not to do a musical. Apparently, the director told both Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix to sing out of key, and had it lean more to the untrustworthy narrator in this movie, it might have worked a lot better. Had it focused more on the kind of music that you got when we got to the Joker is Me song, like that whole sequence was brilliant. There's a sweet spot in this movie from when he has that song to his interrogation with Gary. That is exactly what I would have wanted from this movie, but the rest of it feels very messy. The speaking about emotions, then talking in song felt very jarring. It just never felt focused. There are several times where it can't decide, does a musical want to be diegetic in the scene, or does it want to be all in their head? 'Cause it can't make up its mind, and as a result, ends it messy. And it's the ending's just a cop out for me. And the last shot angers me to no level. The direct implication that this guy that, spoiler alert, kills Arthur Fleck at the end is Heath Ledger's Joker. It's infuriating, absolutely infuriating. Honestly, you could tell they didn't want to make another one of these and they just kind of forced it out the door and made it as weird and awful as possible so they never get asked to do this again, which I respect the grind, but this could have been so much more, man. So much more. And then we get to Trap, my biggest disappointment of the year. I enjoy Shyamalan movies. I'm one of those weirdos that actually liked Old. I really dug Old. And the marketing for this was off the chain. I was excited for Trap. So when I got to this movie, like my anticipation was really high for this one. And a lot of people seem to like this one. But for me, there was a comment on my review for this implying that the reason that everyone acts like a complete idiot is because he perceives them as an idiot. So they are an idiot. But I'm sorry to say that for me, that does not make up for the pure script writing mess that this was. Yes, Shyamalan never makes great scripts, but they at least make a lick of sense half the time. And whilst I'll admit that the twist in this one feels earned and well built up, just the way he gets away with some of this stuff, like not a single officer challenges him at all until he's on the roof. He's literally stood in a meeting with all his SWAT team, and there's apparently a code that you're supposed to be challenged on. No one ever challenges him in that room. There's a guy that, quite frankly, gives away the whole thing to him, including the password, takes him backstage, all that stuff. You could have easily got around that on a scriptwriting perspective by having them know each other from school or something. Just something casual like that. They don't have to be complete strangers like they are in this movie, making them the most unprofessional character ever. Just how he gets out of these situations is so irritating. Whilst Shyamalan's the best father of the year for getting his daughter a platform, this is a movie that just angered me on a whole nother level. Fire extinguisher moment where he's about to pull it, and at that particular moment, this radio that he's stolen, that despite all the extra cameras, no one picks up. This random guy has a radio. There's no undercover officers here. They're all uniformed, so it annoys you just thinking that. There are so many flaws and holes with this movie that I just can't comprehend it. It's frustrating to talk about, and I wanted to love this movie. I wanted to adore this movie. I go into every movie wanting to at least like the movie. So when I go with high expectations and they disappoint me to this level, oh boy. Yeah, there's a reason it is actually in my bottom 10 for the year as well. I know a lot of people like it. For me, this was just one of the stupidest movies I have ever seen. So that for me are my 10 biggest disappointments of the year. What would you say your worst films and disappointments have been for the year? Now, I will reiterate that this is not my bottom 10 of the year. I've already put that up earlier in the video. This is just the movies that I wanted to love, and they ended up disappointing me on several different layers. Coming up on the channel, we have our end of year list, and I'll eventually get my like video out. Just need to edit it. Probably won't be out till after New Year now, just due to time constraints. So that's unfortunate. But till next time, everybody, make sure you click that like button, subscribe for more video reviews coming into the new year 2025, where we're going to go starting strong with Nosferatu. Until then, everyone, my name is Josh. I have been your movie apprentice, and I'll see you all in the next video.